It's the Real Estate Podcast, brought to you by ANZ Home Loans for financial well-beings.
In the Palmerston market, which is really strong for the investor market, it's a satellite city of Darwin. That market has 50% listings from the same time last year. So this urgency that the buyers' agents have put in, we're seeing less properties on the market, and we're now starting to see the median house prices and properties increase in value.
And that is Will Johnson on the Real Estate Breakfast this morning. We'll get back to him in just a moment as we launch together into another real estate episode. More of your property info, connecting you to the largest real estate podcast library across Australia. We're doing that, of course, 7 days a week. Streaming right now on Spotify and Amazon. Good morning to you, Ross, in Buderim on the Sunshine Coast, a long-time listener. You said that you are off to Melbourne to be closer with your daughter and grandson. You said that you haven't been able to convince your daughter to come up here. So what do I do, Craig, you say in the email? I'm 70 years of age later this year, and family is everything. Well, I think you're doing the right thing, Ross, and thanks for sharing that. And if you too would like to let us know what is happening with your property information, by all means, send us an email, myrealestatepodcast@gmail.com. Well, it's a Monday morning. The weekend went way too fast. May the 5th, Brisbane, Sydney, Melbourne, Adelaide and Canberra. They've all got one thing in common, and that is they have a median house price above $1 million. If 5 years ago you sold in Sydney and moved to Brisbane, happy days with that capital increase in your property. Sometimes, looking at a property or a piece of land, it doesn't always hint and tell us the true story of what the capital growth might present over a period of time. And I think we can all relate to those lost real estate opportunities over the years, like a great marlin that was never caught. Although I have to say, I am rooting for the marlin in that case. Let's take you all the way back up to Darwin and catch up with Will Johnson from Herron Todd White. Good morning, Will. Welcome to the Real Estate Breakfast. First time in 2025. How busy are you?
Good morning, Craig, and hello to all the listeners. I can't believe it's May already. We're into the beautiful dry season, the sunny dry season of Darwin, and the year is absolutely flying by. We've got to hold on to ourselves for this year. Yeah, well, May is here, June next month. One of the things that I did want to pick up on with you is talking of people moving. Like last time we spoke, there's a lot of these first home buyers, etc., or somebody has cashed out of their property. They want to put 500 grand in their hip pocket or $1 million. That's all been taking place, but buyers' agents have started to move. They've been moving in there for some time, and that's a bit of a story in itself, isn't it? Oh, without doubt, probably the biggest market mover for the past 6 to 9 months, really, we've seen here in the Greater Darwin market has been the influx of the buyer's agent. So well organised, investors ready to go, really swooping in on the most affordable capital city market of the country and capitalising on such a strong rental market. We've always had a pretty transient population here in Darwin, so they're tenants by nature. We have a big proportion of tenants versus owner-occupiers. And as you were talking before, with so many capital cities in the country now pushing through $1 million, the buyer's agents are extracting that equity and then they're coming north and looking for the bargains. So I've had big activity in the Queensland and Western Australian markets through the buyer's agencies. And now they've come to the top of the country to look for the next hotspot.
About a month ago, I was talking to somebody who was telling me a story about the buyer's agent gurus that exist because they've got their own following. People follow them, and some of them have got thousands and thousands of followers. This point in case, buyer's agents, they move into Darwin, they're going to influence those investors that follow their lead.
Oh, without doubt, this is a really interesting way that the market moves with these larger buyers agencies. National groups, we're of one buyers agency that have bought over 250 dwellings in Darwin in the last 6 months. It's a real shift in the investment market. If you think 10 or 15 years ago, these investment groups would quite often target one particular development, a high rise, off the plan, swoop in, buy the whole building and then package it up to investors. What we're seeing now with these buyers agents, you've got hundreds of organised investors. They're well structured with trusts and other investment vehicles, and they're going and buying single dwellings or single strata units and really mixing their whole way through the local market. It's very organised and quite strategic, and they're moving quickly and having really strong results and getting properties bought for their clients.
Yeah, that peak, that rise can be quite large in terms of when it starts to take off. It really takes off. So let's just have a look at the Darwin housing market. As you say, it's experiencing notable growth. The median dwelling prices climbed to $531,000, marking a 4.1 annual increase. Houses have led the surge, 5.1% rise over the past year, reaching that median of 602,000. I mean, that 5.1% rise, that's pretty good, over the last 12 months?
Yeah, it certainly is. We've been in a pretty tough market cycle for quite a period of time now. So we're now seeing this, the median prices increase. And when you overlay that with the amount of listings that are on the market, the data is really quite obvious. So the greater Darwin market, the number of listings on market as of the last week of April was 34% lower than the same time last year. And it's a really large reduction in the number of properties that are available for sale. In the Palmerston market, which is really strong for the investor market, it's a satellite city of Darwin. That market has 50% listings from the same time last year. So this urgency that the buyers agents have put in, we're seeing less properties on the market, and we're now starting to see the median house prices and properties increase in value because of a lack of stock and a lack of supply.
Yeah, well, you had the lack of stock anyway. That's just exacerbated the problem for people wanting to get in there. Having a look at the units, they've seen a modest 1.7% increase, bringing the median to 383,000. In April alone, Darwin recorded the highest monthly price jump among Australian capitals. I didn't know this. At 1.1%, contributing to a national average home price of $825,000 and change.
Yeah, we're definitely seeing that on the ground here now. And anecdotally, there are some suburbs which have jumped double digits over the past 6 to 8 months. Entry-level stock in Palmerston or the greater Darwin northern suburbs, those properties are really starting to move quickly. Our unit market is starting to turn over again. We're not quite at that point where the sales prices can align to new construction, so we think there's probably some more run to go in that unit market as well, because there's not that new supply coming. We don't have tower cranes in the sky with lots of new development going on. So, we think the unit market is probably in for a healthy run as well. And those numbers are starting to feed through in what you're just talking to there.
And Darwin has become Australia's second most expensive capital city to rent a house, alongside Canberra. Now, the median asking rents for houses have risen 7.7% over the past year, and no surprise that the rental vacancy rate of just 0.6%. Very tight.
Very, very tight rental market. We've been talking to, the lack of rental stock in the market for a couple of years now, and it's really exacerbated. If you, again, tracking on the listing tracker data that we have here at Herron Todd White, the greater Palmerston region, which has a high proportion of rental stock, that's 33% down. The number of rental listings available this week is 33% down from the same time last year. And the greater Darwin market, which encompasses all of the market, there's 53% less properties available for rent this time compared to this time last year. So we don't expect that the rental market is going to slow down at all. Again, it's a supply piece, and now the rental values are just lifting up. So it's a very tricky, precarious rental situation. We talk of a housing crisis around the country, and we're certainly in the midst of it here with a lot of community groups talking to it. There's real strain at the rental level.
What about the housing crisis when it comes to a lack of tradies in the area? Because I remember last time we spoke, that was starting to seep through, but I think that's sort of grown and gotten worse, is it?
Darwin tends to be a counter-cyclical place, as everyone's from somewhere else. Largely when you're talking to people, they come for a few years and then they move on again, and tradesmen no different. So the problem we've had, is the rest of the country has had a really strong construction market, so you haven't needed to come to the NT to find a job. So as a result, people have stayed at home or moved home and they've had the work. So we are in a period where we have a real shortage of trade, and some of the bigger construction projects that are happening with which are being underpinned by defence and infrastructure spend with the federal and the NT government, that's really sucking that labour force out of the localised market and onto those big projects. So we're starting to see more activity in the new build market with some exceptional first homeowner grants and really new build grants for anyone that are available. So it is difficult to find a tradesman. It is difficult to get a house built. So that's why that supply pipeline is just not going to get flooded. And then you feed back to the amount of stock that's on the market, which is not going to change quickly.
Yeah, it's all sort of happening. Everything is converging at once, as they say. The city of Darwin has unveiled also this $91.5 million capital works budget. That is for the 25-26 year, focusing on projects like the redevelopment of the Civic Centre and the construction of a 410-space multi-storey car park. So I feel that we could sort of talk for another hour as far as Darwin is concerned. A lot happening.
Plenty going on up here, and for your listeners, if you are looking for a market or even a holiday, the winter time, Ross is leaving Hervey Bay and going to Melbourne. He needs to pick a footy team, and he should think about a holiday in Darwin through the winter. It can be they can be long winters in Melbourne.
Oh, nicely played. There you go, Ross. All roads leading back to you to end up on this morning. Hey, great to catch up with you, Will. Enjoy your Monday and your working week, and thanks for coming on to the Real Estate Breakfast.
Thanks, Craig. Always a pleasure. Chat soon.
Stay ahead of the competition with the latest news, insights and data analysis on the property podcast that keeps you informed. Remember to follow us on any of the podcast platforms so you never miss a real estate podcast. You can follow us on Apple, Spotify and Amazon. Know your property with us.
It's definitely worth exploring the option of maybe moving out a little bit further where you can purchase a property. There's lots of good jobs around Orange, and it's a really wide variety of employment opportunities.
Fannie Mae, which is a big purchaser of loans, does a monthly survey, and only 22% of respondents think it's a good time to buy a home, but 64% think it's a good time to sell. But what are they going to do with that? Because they need to live somewhere.
Especially, you just mentioned the U.S. desire for U.S. properties from top to 7 now. Obviously, it's because of tariff, because of this trade war, making it really uncertain for the international buyers, particularly from China. But we're very lucky. So I think we're in a lucky country in Australia, and desire has gone up like a bananas. So we're doing really, really well. Again, it's always the same reason. It's just safe.
Yeah, I genuinely believe it impacts productivity across the whole economy, where you look at it and go, well, the harder I work, I'm not getting any further in front. It just leads to burnout, job dissatisfaction. I'm not sure where the answer is amongst those people who are experiencing this. Unfortunately, there's no cheap alternative anymore. I look around, Sydney, where we're based, and you go, all right, well, what if you move out a little bit further? It doesn't seem to get much cheaper.
We connect you to the best real estate information across Australia. The Real Estate Podcast.